Alright. Evening, folks. Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for a not quite Death and Taxes, but sort of Death and Taxes-y deck. This is one of our stream goal deck lists. So, MTGO user JTL005 has been playing this Esper Vial deck off and on for a few weeks, and has been putting up results with it. Essentially, you are a value-oriented Ether Vial toolbox deck. So your goal is to use Baleful Strix and Recruiter of the Guard to bury your opponents in card advantage, especially when coupled with Soulherder. So whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and at the beginning of your end step, you can exile another target creature you control, and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So, draw a card every turn, tutor every turn, exile a creature every turn, do Flicker with Shenanigans every turn, bounce every turn, Plague Engineer, and flip-flop the creature type around every turn. You've got options here. There are a lot of things about this deck list that I think are extremely questionable. Cling to Dust. I don't think that card's good enough for Legacy. Just gonna be real with you. And I also don't think that this deck really generates enough cards going into the graveyard where you actually want this. I think an Emrakul in the sideboard is super questionable. But I guess if you're playing against Mill, it's fine. Or if you're looking for something to put in off a show and tell, cool. And similarly, like the random one of Wasteland in the sideboard, and like basically everything in the sideboard is a one of outside of the Force of Negations. So we have 12 one ofs and 3 Force of Negations in the sideboard. I always tend to value redundancy, and some of these things can't even be tutor forward via Recruiter of the Guard. So like the Fairy, Plague Engineer, and Relic Warder can, but then these cards not so much. There's this Enlightened Tutor to help you get Canonist, Rip, and Deafening Silence as sort of a mini package as well. So that's a thing. Sorry, Grafdigger's Cage also belongs in that pile. Yeah, Verriers. If there is a home for Cling to Dust in Legacy, it is in Strifo pile. That deck is all about slightly overlapping situational one-ofs, and the ability to, like, throw a Cling to Dust in the graveyard off a DAC plus, and then flash it back later in the game when you've run out of cards. That's so much more reasonable than here. But, like, if you look at the things that are going to go to our graveyard from us casting them in any game, it's like Brainstorm. And then all the other stuff either requires our opponents to have a creature or our stuff to die or be countered. Yeah, I'm not going to criticize this deck too much before playing it. I think a lot of things about this deck look super weird and seem so suboptimal to me. But this user keeps, like, 5-0ing with it and putting results in the Legacy Challenge, so this is going to be one of those times, like, where I just, like, shut up, play the deck list, and then give my full opinion afterwards. Like, I think this whole sideboard is essentially loose. But, like, let's just see it in action. So I think that's kind of what we're all about here. Legacy League. I have lost some play points playing some things off stream. Let's get some play points. Hey, a Deathrite Shaman. I bet that's worth a lot since Deathrite Shaman is so good in Legacy. Oh, wait. I mean, do you really want to... What is that? Kopala. Merfolk Kiora. Got it. Do you really want to be sitting back on a spell versus Blue-Red Delver, though? Like, it's kind of cool against Arcanist and all, but I would rather kill the Arcanist, personally. And that's kind of my problem with Cling to Dust in Legacy, is that it doesn't usually actually answer a card. Outside of the scenarios where you're playing against like Breach or Reanimator and you have like grabbed their one key card out of the graveyard, otherwise you're blanking like half a Snapcaster Mage or you're stopping an Arcanist trigger, or you're gaining a little life and maybe shrinking a Tarmogoyf. I'm so not enthused about that card. There were a lot of people who were very, very vocal about this card when it was first spoiled. And I just have not been super impressed. Like, it won... I think I was playing against Stryfo. And it essentially won him a game where I was playing D&T, and I had just, like, flooded out. I had nothing. And then he top decked Cling to Dust in the late game and turned it into 2 or 3 cards. But it was like one of those things where anything that did something would have buried me at that point. That was the only positive interaction I've had with that card. Otherwise, I've mostly seen it do a lot of nothing. We're playing against Season of Mists. This hand looks awful. I hope this is not an average-looking hand for this deck. So, like, I really want an opener that has Giver, Brainstorm, Vial, Mage, or Strix. And I have, like, none of those things. So I'll be throwing this one back. What's my basic land situation like? I have Island, Plains. No basic Swamp. Okay. This is going to be an awkward hand. I'm going to keep this. And as of right now, I'm fetching, like, Tundra off of this Flooded Strand in all likelihood. This Cling to Dust, we're gonna send that away. Our opponent's mulliganing to 5, so we're probably playing against combo. So that makes fetching the Flooded Strand pretty safe. But we'll need to top deck another land to play Meddling Mage on turn 1. Oh, just Wasteland Pass. Okay, so we are playing against some sort of like Steel Stompy deck. Alright, now we're not so much fetching Tundra. Do I care? I'm probably never going to cast this Teferi this game. So I don't necessarily think that this card is that threatening when my opponent is so low on resources. But I do think that I'm not going to have a chance to cast Teferi. And I might as well, like, use it to help do something this game, while I still have something to do with it. Scariest thing for my opponent would be a main deck Sorceress Spyglass, which is not unprecedented in this Oko world. That's also pretty annoying. The Stonecoil Serpent also is a bit annoying, because it has protection from multicolored. So both of these things are going to dodge Baleful Strix here. Keeping that in mind, I'm going to main phase activate this and put in this Baleful Strix, trying to draw into another land. Now that fits the bill. I think Steel Overseer to make that stuff bigger is about the most threatening thing right now. Yep, that's fine. And that's also as expected. No blocks possible. Now we're just hoping not to get goldfished out of the game. So this is not castable because of the Thorn of Amethyst. I think I'm going to be Flicker Wisping the Stone Coil Serpent to kill it. But there's also a world where I'll Flicker Wisp my Baleful Strix to just draw another card. Yeah. So now I'm just trying to make it so that I clock my opponent before they kill me. I think I'm set up okay for that. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Email's fine. I'll print it off tomorrow. Thank you. So we have now turned to the point where we are potentially the aggressor. That is scary. In case you're not familiar with that thing, it does have reach. Something, something, shaky mana base, something, something. We really needed to play around the Wasteland the previous turn. So that we could potentially play the Meddling Mage and shut off this as a future out. But if I would have traded the factory for this Meddling Mage last turn, then I would have re-Meddling Maged on Steel Overseer. This still would have happened. I would have had Swords of Plowshares. Yeah, maybe I made a mistake in trading last turn. Raider, thank you very much for throwing your Twitch Prime money this way this month. You are the first of the streams today. Sorry, the first of the subs today. I changed my name about a week ago, just for marketing, branding reasons, making myself more consistent across platforms. I guess there's only 2 Stone Cold Serpent left. I shouldn't name that. Arcbound. Let's name Ravager instead. Because it could put me dead next turn. Eating Heroin, thank you very much for subbing as well. Thank you very much for your support. Got some fun things planned for sub goals for the not too distant future. Since that thing tramples, it's not worth saving 1 life here. Another factory. Life's bad. Life's real bad. Don't know that we have a Peacekeeper. Peacekeeper would be hot. Soldier, Snake. So I could name Soldier, shrink this, get killed by trample damage here. Man, I'm so close. So, this is protection from all colors. I can put it on Snake instead, make it so this has 3 power, block here, die to this instead. We did not quite get there. Yeah, so I'm going to sideboard and then I'll show off something I want to do. Alright, so Relic Order, good. Swords to Plowshares, good. Plague Engineer is a maybe. It can do some things when my opponent has 1/1 creatures. But it's not like it's amazing. Teferi's fine. Wasteland's fine. Let's figure out what I don't want and board those out. Cling to Dust, get out. Step 1. What's step 2? So keeping opposing chalices in mind is something that I'm going to have to do. Zone of Talk, I don't think this deck's good, but I'm prepared to be proven wrong. So I think I'm really looking to just play to the board as much as possible and try to outfare my opponent. So I feel like things like Brainstorm and Force of Will might actually be my worst cards here. The protection from multicolored stuff is going to kick my butt, though. Like, it makes my Baleful Strix not the amazing chump blocker that it usually is. But not everything is protection from multicolor, so I don't think I can board these out. So, hypothetically, if I were to board out the Brainstorms, my blue count for Force of Will is probably lower than I would like it to be. So keeping that in mind, I think I'm going to do this in the other direction, where I board out my Force of Wills and keep in the Brainstorms. Yeah, so a player by the handle JTL005 has top 8'd a couple challenges with this deck list. So I have Brazen Borrower bounce a thing into Teferi bounce a thing. Is this good? Doesn't really feel great. But maybe this is what this deck looks like. Eh? Like, I definitely feel like this is land heavy. But I kind of effectively have 3 spells. That's interesting. I think that's interesting enough to change what I'm doing with my turn. If I'm being honest, I can't give you a good reason why the Emrakul's in the sideboard. Like, I can give you bad reasons. Like, it does protect you from Brain Freeze if your opponent also doesn't have Grape Shot in their deck. And you can put it in off a show and tell. Yeah, the problem is that if they have some other win condition, Emrakul doesn't actually win you the game. Vial on 15, get there. Evening, Lasco, welcome. Ooh! I mean, we got a 2-for-1 for our Giver of Runes, so I'll definitely take that. Esper Vial, Ebb. It is a deck that exists in the game Magic the Gathering. That's what I have to say about that. Okay. So we're going to do something that might look a little weird here, but there's a reason for it. We're not going to Brazen Borrower that. We're going to Leon and Relic Order that. The reason being that if my opponent were to sack the Arcbound Ravager to itself in response to the Brazen Borrower trigger, that would counter this ability and send this card to the graveyard rather than exile. And I would like this creature. It's potentially my actual win condition at this point. I'll say this a couple of times throughout the stream, but website updates are happening now. Did a whole bunch of like quality of life, housekeeping things today. Yep. Okay. So we have all these weird situational cards that are maybe going to do things. Like if my opponent's best play is just redeploy the Ravager, I will Plague Engineer on, I believe it's a Construct, and kill it. Otherwise, we can use a combination of Petty Theft and Brazen Borrower. Or sorry, of Petty Theft plus Meddling Mage to do some kind of cute things. Oh, please tell me they're both constructs. No. So I don't have double blue. Let's see what you do in response to this. So I actually kind of think that I'm supposed to name Nexus here. Or whatever this thing's creature type is going to be. A Blink Moth. So I think I do this so that this can't be animated successfully and sacrificed to Ravager or have counters put on it later. I'm going to play into Spatial Contortion a little bit by making that attack. But I think it's okay. The new artwork for this is kind of cool. I like the old one. It's iconic to me at this point. But I totally respect this this new take on it. There's a conversation going around Twitter the other day about how Flicker Wisp doesn't get the love that it deserves, and no one else has given Flicker Wisp options for alternative art. My thoughts on that were that Flicker Wisp art is amazing, and there could be no other Flicker Wisp. But I get that so many other cards. Ooh. That's not bad. So I will obviously trade Plague Engineer for that. So we keep Arcbound Ravager's counters from going anywhere. My opponent has Jitte counters, which can be used to do things with that Blink Moth Nexus, but we're going to hopefully take care of that via Brazen Borrower. And also get a Time Walk out of it. Nice. So I obviously need to plus this. The next question is, should I actually play this Meddling Mage out? Or not? It could just potentially die, but I am going to go ahead and throw it out there. I think a big Stone Coil Serpent is potentially scary for my board, so I'm going to go ahead and name that. No, I think if I name Jitte, it tips my hand too much. Oh, you're saying just main phase, bounce the Jitte, let them eat my Arbiter, get the Ravager back, and then do that. I see. Yeah, that's a pretty good line. Alright, opponent is opting to take me off of blue. That's fine. So now they have given me priority. So I guess I need to use this or lose it, essentially. Now opponent can do what they want with this. Some weird things could potentially happen. Depending on what my opponent's last card is. Regardless, I'm happy that my opponent did not pressure my Teferi. That is not great for me. I probably need to cash the Teferi in for a card, unfortunately. Let's get this off the battlefield and force them to use 3 mana again to do it. What is my recruiter getting? I'm not sure. Let's figure it out. It may just be my Charming Prince to re-flicker. Or it could be Meddling Mage and take them off of either the champion or the Jitte. Both are pretty good short-term plays. I think I'm going to go with the Meddling Mage. I think if my opponent drew a land and were to go Jitte Equip, it would be rather devastating for me. And they don't have Metalcraft yet for Etch Champion while they're at 6. That's nice. Do I want to swing Meddling Mage into that Etched Champion? I think I do. Because if my opponent trades, I just wasteland the Ancient Tomb. Yeah, it's like we are playing against old school Affinity. Like, it very much seems like the modern deck from 2-ish years ago. Interesting. My opponent not realize they don't have Metalcraft? Ah, that's the play. I see. Just protecting the life total and trading one. So they did not take out the Jitse one, they took out the Stonecoil Serpent one. So that seems to be indicative that they actually do have one. So if they're going to play one, let's make it as small as possible. Really wish I could cast this. It would be very good. No, I think I need to be more afraid of them gaining life. They can hold down the ground for a little while, but I think them gaining life is what puts this game out of reach. So the next question is, do I get rid of that Etched Champion right now? Or do I wait? If I wait and they play a artifact land, I lose the opportunity to Swords to Plowshares that. I think I have to do it now. So this can't trade with this. It can trade with Recruiter, but it can't trade with my Meddling Mage, so I'm fine with my opponent blocking in any way here. So we get 1 damage a turn as is. Okay. That's good. Does this blink instantly? It's been a little while. At the beginning of the next end step. So I could get Charming Prince off Vial on 2. And then use that to get, like, Flicker Wisp or something else. I could also just start getting a Soulherder going. Let's read Soulherder again. Yeah. So let's use this to get Soulherder. So my opponent gets to make the same block as before. I'll go to second main, activate this, put in Flicker Wisp's cousin, go to the end step, target this, blink this Recruiter, which untaps it, use the ability, yes. Recruiter, use this ability, yes. We get Charming Prince with this one. And then in my opponent's second main phase, I can blink something else with Prince. Hey, there we go. I definitely spent too much time talking or doing something. I don't know where all my clock went. But I must have spaced out and kind of did some stuff for a minute or two. I'm down, I think, more than 5 minutes on clock. Lasco, I don't know, man. It was in the deck list, and it's been in the deck list for multiple weeks. Mulligan. Keep. Toss back a land. Done. Yeah, JLT has been doing very well with this deck over the last couple of weeks. Yes, I know Prince only flickers my creatures. My plan the previous turn was to flicker a recruiter, get another flicker whisper, something. Stonecoil Serpent. We have a Plague Engineer that can trade with that, so that's okay. I have to do that the other way. I'm going to name Ravager. Jitte is the most catastrophic card for me to come down, but it's probably only a 1 or 2 of, so I'd rather name a 4 of here. Opponent says whoops. I agree, whoops. That is quite awkward. So I'm looking ahead to this when I make that decision. Yeah, I think my opponent obviously played their last turn suboptimally. Another Stonecoil? Ooh, Walking Ballista is very good. Actually, I'm going to switch that to naming S Champion now. Because I don't know that I can deal with one of those getting in play. The Ravager is pretty annoying, but if there's another body with some protection on it, I think I'm going to lose outs very, very, very quickly. Ooh. That's unfortunate. Honestly, if I were the opponent, I would have pretty heavily considered getting rid of the Nexus as well. Yep, it would be nice, but we are just dead to that. So GG's, friends. Protection from Multicolored. Very good against this deck. I'm doing pretty well. We sleeved up an interesting deck tonight. The mana in this round did not feel good. I don't want to play against Wasteland with this deck. I don't have access to a basic swamp, so things like Baleful Strix and Plague Engineer are going to be hard to cast against Delver decks. And that's inconvenient because these cards are like really good against Delver decks. Oh yeah, fine and Andy. My opponent is probably making a pretty good call for the meta. No? Not really comfortable keeping this hand. Why is this deck so bad? No, I think this deck is horrible. I thought that going into the stream. I thought that from the time that I saw this deck. But JTL has been doing fine with it, so there must be something to it. Jason, thank you very much for following. I hope you're enjoying the content. Jason, we're playing Breach with Honorog on Thursday, actually. Oh yeah, just Chalice, please. Thank you. That's fine. Oh, okay. Hold up. What's going on? Slightly scared. So maybe Urza Echoes is my current guess. Could be Painter as well. Looks like Painter. We're just two good old-fashioned legacy decks doing legacy things. I'm gonna get the basic planes off of this. You're responding to my Scry 2? Did you get bored and decide to fetch? Charming Prince is an interesting Magic card. I definitely think that it's... What are you doing with your 1 red mana over there? Into your Chalice of the Void. As an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card, draw 2 cards. Okay. So my current thought is that my opponent has things like Goblin Engineer that can bring artifacts back from the graveyard. Or they're a Breach deck. They have to want to be discarding cards to play something like Thrill of Possibility. I think the entire chat is confused about what our opponent is playing. Our opponent may even be confused about what they're playing. Is this going to be good? No. But we knew that already. So this is a super cute engine. We're going to make a very big Soulherder. I disagree with your assessment. So the reason is we know for sure that the Strix is on top of the library. So we know for sure that if we tap the Aether Vial, we can use it this turn. What I'm doing is allowing myself to play something like a Palace Jailer or a Brazen Borrower or something like that off of my mana. Okay. We are playing against bonus round. Ignite the future. Okay. Hold up, did opponent just get Rite of Flame? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Rite of Flame cost 1 mana? I guess that works still. That's interesting. Alright, I'm gonna F6 at this point. I can't cling to dust because of the stupid chalice. See, we drew this card against a graveyard deck, and it was still bad. Card's unplayable. So, note, opponent really needs to kill us this turn. Otherwise we can get, like, Recruiter into Plague Engineer and just wipe all the goblins and win. Yeah, this is Legacy right now. Legacy is the Wild West. Like, everyone's focused on Breach and Oko, but just about every time I play Leagues, I play against 5 different decks. Oh, shoot, bonus round will copy that. Hold up. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, that player copies it and may choose new targets for the copy. So this first one will just target anything. It doesn't matter. Yeah, whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell. I mean, I still think the card's pretty terrible, to be fair. Okay. So their kill is direct burn damage. Now we know. I might have been able to stop that if I knew that bonus round copied my spells, too. Okay, so Canonist is great. If my opponent plays out mana like they did that game, Relic Order's fine. Rip is good. Enlightened Tutor for either one of, like, either Deafening Silence or Canonist is fine. Force of Negation is good. Plague Engineer on Goblins is good. Cage is good. Alright, I don't want Palace Jailer. Peacekeeper does basically the same thing as Plague Engineer does, but Plague Engineer does it better. I don't think I need Brazen Borrower. I don't think I need Swords to Plowshares. Ooh, is this actually going to stop all the copies? Does Teferi stop copies of spells? No? No. So, does this actually do anything? Probably not. Oh, this is 62. And I guess I can trim some Baleful Strix. Oop, where'd we go? Where did my match go? Okay. Sorry, I need to look on the back end for a second and undo whatever Moto just did. That'll do. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, this looks like a keep to me. I don't know if my opponent has, like, Blood Moons in their deck, too. But I think I'm just going to start with a Grafdigger's Cage. I don't want my opponent to play a Chalice on 1 and have to be forced to counter it. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to assume that this Soulherder is not going to hit play sometime soon. And that it becomes Force of Will fodder for anything that's actually scary. I'm going to get basics because I have that luxury. Actually, I've changed my mind. I'm just going to pass the turn with the ability to hardcast this Force of Negation rather than playing something out. Excuse me. I've attempted to stop my opponent's engine here. We'll see if it works. It has worked. Yeah, they took Vial and not Cage. Seems a little unusual to me, but... I'm not sure. I don't have anything on my immediate calendar right now. So now, fetching the basics earlier to play around my opponent potentially having Blood Moon has meant that I can't... Oh. That I can't cast this Flicker Wisp that's in my hand. We're going to counter that. I'm going to put that in their graveyard because I can hold up hard-casting Force of Negation, but I can't hold up hard-casting Force of Will. And I do think I need to play this since I'm short on mana. It'll be unfortunate if my opponent, like, draws something scary this turn. Significantly safer now. I don't love doing this. But doing it will significantly increase my clock. Friday was days ago. I don't remember what I had. Oh wait, no, that was Valentine's Day. That's a lie. I made fancy pork chops. So we get one counterspell for something scary that my opponent does. I have the graveyard covered. I can make it 6 damage to the Ancient Tombs turned off, but I don't necessarily think that that's good. I will just play this out, though. I shouldn't do it with this timing. But I'm not exactly expecting Volcanic Fallout. Okay. I don't think I'm going to change anything about the way that I sideboarded. I could consider bringing in the Wasteland, since it's good against my opponent's Soul Lands. I think I'm going to trim one of my Vials to do that when I'm on the draw. No, I've had this cough since the tail end of December. I just have not shaken it. I feel fine, but the cough is lingering. That's the plan. I'm going to go ahead and mulligan this one and try to find something that's a touch more stable. I think this is good enough. I am not. given how likely I am to stumble, I think I'm just going to throw back the Recruiter and keep the things that would have a more immediate impact on the board. Perfect. Yeah, that's fine. Do I have a scrubland? I do have a scrubland. I think it's more important for me to be able to cast Meddling Mage into Engineer and also give myself access to Cling to Dusk than to play around a Blood Moon at this point. This is borderline actually worth it. That's almost a good draw. Again, the mana base of this deck is atrocious. So I fetch to be able to cast my spells, and because I have the Wasteland, I can't actually Force of Negation. And I would love to just hold up Force of Negation and pass. But I think I am the weird, awkward tempo deck right now. And with the Ruby Medallion in play, my Wasteland doesn't actually do much. So now, what, opponent? What can you Burning Wish for that I care about? A Sweeper? Escape to the Wilds. Exile top 5 cards of your library. You may play cards exiled this way until end of your next turn. You may play an additional land this turn. Okay. There's the green for it. Your opponent's list is very interesting. Opponent has some interesting options available to them. They've got a decent amount of mana. Storm count is 7, 8 with Seething Song, 9 with Burning Wish. So the real question here is, can they cobble together a kill without using that Reforge the Soul? Because if they use the... Hold up. Hold up. Really? What? Oh, until the end of your next turn. So they can still use this stuff on their next turn. I see. I'm a little confused myself, if I'm being honest. Alright, any of this stuff have, like, flashback randomly? Yes. So, I'm going to try to draw into a blue land, or a meddling mage, or, you know, something. God, the mana in this deck. Why? Why is it so bad? Good job, Cling to Dust. You've saved the city. Ricky, thank you very much for following. Hope you're enjoying the content here. It's a weird one. Hoping opponent reforges us into something that matters. But I really think they probably had us last turn if they were going for it. Maybe not. Like, they obviously know this deck list better than I do, but... it was my thought that between the Burning Wish and Reforge the Soul, that I was in trouble last turn. Alright, so I have a Brainstorm. We'll see what they have. The bonus round lines are shut off, but I know they still have access to a Burning Wish. Here's all my blue lands, by the way. They were hiding over here. Really? 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 So I'm thinking about whether or not I want to fire off this brainstorm now. Because doing so may allow me to play multiple cards more easily on my turn. So for example, the white-blue of Meddling Mage plus the white-white of Leonin Relic Order. So I'm going to go ahead and fire off a brainstorm now, even though this is kind of a suboptimal brainstorm in many ways. Oh, okay. We're past the point where Vial matters. So I'll shuffle the Vial away, put another land here, and figure out what I want to do. So let's start with the easy part and attack for 4. Then it gets harder from there. Goblin Lackey, thank you very much for the raid. For everyone who's just tuning in, hi, I'm Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU. We are playing against bonus round, that is mono-red, almost mono-red Storm, with Esper Vial. So I can play out this Meddling Mage on something like Burning Wish. But if I do so, I'm not holding up the Force of Negation. I think I need to hold up this Force of Negation, either by pitch casting or hard casting. So it's 3 mana to hold up Force of Negation, so I can do 2 mana with other things. So we're going to try to stop graveyard-based shenanigans by exiling the LED. Just side note, I made a mistake this turn because I was just thinking about having lethal. I know my top card is Aether Vial, and I don't want the Aether Vial, so I should have played a fetch land instead of the whatever land I played. Tundra, yes, thank you. Okay, opponent has discarded an empty. That's fine. We only get 1 counterspell, so we have to use it on a business spell of some nature. Yeah, it's... Alright, we won that match, but we won that match due to the fail rate of my opponent's deck, not because I did anything particularly impressive. I was 100% convinced that we were dead. So, after 2 rounds, my thoughts on this deck are that this mana base is rough. Like, if you're trying to get these basics to play around things, you really trip over your own spells pretty badly. Like, we have a couple white-white cards, we have white-blue cards, we have blue-blue cards, we have blue-black cards, we have blue-white cards. I feel so incredibly threatened by Wasteland playing this deck. In Blood Moon, too. The old cough is not doing great tonight. Keep. I think I'm going to play in a way that doesn't let me get wastelanded on turn 1. Hope to be playing against something fair where my turn 2 Baleful Strix is cool. So there's one thing that I don't like about what I did this turn, and that's that I have all of these Brainstorms now without a fetch land. Lobster, thank you very much for following. Well, that's very good. Opponent's also not vulnerable to Wasteland. I think I'm going to Brainstorm and then just bounce that Sylvan Library. I'm going to put back at least one Aether Vial. Unsure if I'm going to put back the second or not. Are you listening to yourself? You could let them use the Sylvan Library. No! No. No. So next turn I'm going to have 4 mana. I can just, like, Strix and Meddling Mage. I think I'm going to go ahead and throw these back. I need to get a white source here. Is it Scrubland? No, I think it's Tundra again. See how much my opponent values that Sylvan Library being in play here? Force of Will much. Speaking about things that are bad, let's talk about my mana base again, and how, because this land is a wasteland, I can't cast 2 double-colored spells next turn, even though I have 4 mana. The greed is real. So I'm starting to fear that my opponent is actually a combo deck, seeing that Preordain now. No, we'll just draw perfectly. It's fine. So I have this Meddling Mage I'm going to cast. My current theory is that my opponent is blue-green Omnital. Pitching Drawn from Dreams, so my theory seems to be correct. So next turn we will brainstorm and try to find some counter spells. Although just finding hate bears is probably preferable. We don't have as fast of a clock as I would like, but my opponent's 2 Force of Wills, 2 Fetch Lands, plus Sylvan Library are definitely helping us out. Soulherder, not exactly what I'm looking for. Okay. Recruiter's fine. Recruiter can get either Meddling Mage, Flicker Wisp, Peacekeeper, or Jailer. So Recruiter is certainly a live draw. I don't want Engineer, and I don't think I want this Wasteland. I'll play Flooded Strand, I'll fetch those away. Well, I wouldn't have the mana for Brazen Borrower. It's the instant side that actually bounces something. So I can get Wisp, and then if my opponent show and tells, I just put in the Wisp, blink out the Omniscience, attack for 6, put my opponent to 2, and hope Recruiter gets me there somehow. It's possible Peacekeeper is better than Recruiter. It depends on what my opponent is playing. So if my opponent has a Cunning Wish package, then getting the Flicker Wisp is probably better because they could just win without attacking. But otherwise, Peacekeeper is potentially better. No, I'm holding this Brainstorm for as long as possible, and I'm going to cast it if my opponent casts a Show and Tell in response, so that I can try to find Force of Negation or Force of Will. Nice. Wow. Somewhat surprised opponent went for it there without backup. So now I think this will do our opponent in. Force Negation's only in my sideboard. My bad. I still would have been doing it looking for Force of Will, though, which obviously happened. So now opponent would need to have Eureka. And land. Non-fetch land? Or they would have to draw both. Yeah, they would have to pay for life to get Eureka and land. Okay. Meme? Meme. Actual good card. Actual good card. Okay card. Okay card. I don't think Enlightened Tutor is necessarily good enough. This is actually good. So I don't want Source of Plowshares. I don't want Cling to Dust. Baleful Strix isn't really that good. I'll probably board out the Charming Prince. I think most of the time my opponent isn't actually going to have permanents that I can realistically bounce. If the Omniscience gets into play, and my opponent will have priority and they'll get to, like, cast an Emrakul or something. So this doesn't work as well as something like Leon Relic Order does. Yeah, Plague Engineer not doing stuff. And actually Strix is probably worse than the Soulherder. This is okay. That's true. Maybe I'm not giving Brazen Borrower enough credit here. This hand's fine. I don't necessarily think my hand's great, but I have a lot of draws that are going to end up making this hand pretty darn good. I have a Force of Negation and multiple pitch targets, as well as a 1-2-3 curve off of Vial. Oh, no other land? No other land. Did my opponent keep on 7? My opponent kept on 7. That's a sad cantrip. Well, I have a pile of not lands. Good thing I have this Ether Vial. I mean, I think I'm probably favored by about 60% to win this game. I'm going to get a Meddling Mage on Show and Tell, followed by a Meddling Mage on I don't even know what, but it'll be good. And the Meddling Mages are going to be protected via Giver of Runes. Eureka may not even be in my opponent's deck, so I might just name Cunning Wish. Like, Cunning Wish will probably be the thing that gives my opponent access to more of their outs to my nonsense. I'm interested in whatever they're doing here. Arcane Artisan, maybe? A Cunning Wish. Your Cunning Wish resolves. What would you like to get that I'll name with my other Meddling Mage? Echoing Truth doesn't even beat board. They need some weird Devastation Tide-esque card. Chain of Vapor, sure. Perfect mana. I'm going to go ahead and take the Vial up to 3 to put Recruiter in. I don't want to use either the Baleful Strix or Soulherder. They're blue cards for Force of Will. That's interesting. Like, am I supposed to Force of Will that? I don't think so. I think I just let them block, and then I give protection to whichever one they block. Oh, no Death Touch. Yeah, definitely don't Force of Will it then. I can Recruiter for another Meddling Mage. And just use my mana. Or what about Canonist? Because then my opponent can't counterspell back if I do something on their turn. Like, they cast a spell, I counter. Done. Do I keep fighting? I don't think I should. I have Soulherder that can pitch to Force of Negation. Oh, right, this has the if it's not your turn clause. Yeah. I very rarely play with blue cards on this stream. So I forget about the parts of the cards that aren't relevant to me. My bad, chat. Ice Coatl still doesn't have Death Touch. What a scumbag. We'll always know that at this point. There's some argument not to attack with this recruiter here. Oh, just, that is awkward. So that other Ice Coatl gives both of them Death Touch. So this is now a forced play. Yeah, I'm okay. So this thing is pro-blue for right now, so I'm safe from this chain of vapor. I think I'm just going to recruiter for another recruiter and leave myself with flexibility. But I'm probably going to end up recruitering for Meddling Mage on my opponent's turn. But this gives me flexibility. Whereas I might not have that same flexibility if I just get the Meddling Mage. My opponent's thinking about something over there. So I think the situations where I lose involve my opponent having land, show and tell, the chain which they already have, and Veil of Summer. I mean, I'll bite. Sure. You also have to have the land now. Now it has to be soul land. Yep, there we go. So another complaint that I have about this deck is that its clock is absolutely anemic. So like D&T has a bad clock, but at least we have a handful of Flicker Wisps, Crusaders, you know, Brightlings, and equipment to help finish things off. But the average power of creatures in this deck probably comes out to be like 1.5. Yeah. So like average power of creatures in this deck is extremely low. Yeah, I was thinking about it fine and Andy. So bad. Ugh. Teferi and Soulherder are both unimpressive here. If my opponent is some sort of like Delver deck or some sort of permanent based deck, and I gain the ability to bounce something with Teferi on turn 3 when otherwise I'm not doing much, I think that's better than hoping that I draw something like Charming Prince on turn 2 to curve out. That was the plan with that opening. Well, that's potentially a great draw. Absolutely. And welcome back. Mats has been putting up some great results with assorted deck lists of that ilk. Please don't daze me. I didn't force that, hoping to make this line good. Alright, so instead of losing both the Force and the Teferi, I just lost the Teferi. As the game goes on, I can find Plague Engineer to deal with that young Pyromancer. I get Charming Prince to scry and help me out with that. Yeah, I loved the Destiny Spinner Enchantress. The donation queue ever gets low, that's a deck that I'll revisit. I think it still needs a little bit of tweaking from what I was playing, but it was very good. I've never seen a card that was simultaneously good against Chalice and counterspells while also being the primary win condition of a deck. Like, it's in a very interesting conceptual space. Bottom. Awesome. I'll add that to the queue after the stream. So Baleful Strix may be indicative of the fact that we're not actually playing against Delver, but we're actually playing against a control deck. What was the pitch to Force of Will? Force of Will was. Frosty, thank you very much for subscribing. You are my third sub of the night. It's very much appreciated, and that has unlocked a stream for Thursday, the 20, whatever it is, the 27th. Yeah, Legacy Enchantress is a thing of beauty. Yeah, I'll play this into a daze. I think Lightning Bolt is a good name. I think Dreadhorde Arcanist is a good name. The double Badlands is weird. I'm just gonna name something I'm pretty much 100% sure is in their deck. Like, I don't want to name Arcanist and then be wrong about it being in the deck. Similarly, I don't want to name something that might be in a Phoenix deck, but wouldn't be in one of the others. I think Lightning Bolt and Ponder were my two easiest choices. But seeing as I have the board relatively locked up, I think I like naming Bolt better, because it's something that potentially helps to break up the ground stall. I'm leaning towards my opponent not being a control deck, because we've seen 4 non-basic lands with no fetches. That K command was technically a 2-for-1, but it's pretty close to a 1-for-1. Oh, God. Is this happening right now? Yeah, I mean, I didn't even start to complain about Giver versus Mother. I just assume everyone has heard that rant enough. So if I play this, my opponent can suicide attack into the board, become the Monarch, but they lose out on a lot of their stuff. I'll get a card out of it. And I have a lot of powerful endgame draws. So the thing is, if they have another non-lightning bolt removal spell, they just remove my Strix attack in for 1, and this is a disaster for me. But if I don't play that Palace Jailer that turn, I'm probably never playing it for the rest of the game. I'm now going to be knocked off of Plague Engineer, which is really one of the cards that I'm hoping to draw, given the circumstances. Why did you play a Wasteland before casting a cantrip? Don't do that. Don't do that. You lose the ability to shuffle. Like, I know it's a peak, but you lose the ability to, like, say, ponder into a fetch land or something. So it feels kind of like a Cabal Therapy deck now. The peak is a poor man's Gataxian Probe. Yep. Oh my god, they didn't attack in. Oh my god, they didn't attack in. Oh, this is so good. Wow, 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 wow. So now with a land, I have Recruiter for Plague Engineer. Okay. This was unexpected. Is this just going to be Underworld Breach for Culligan's command? Like, blow up my Strix, make me discard Recruiter? Drewski, thank you very much for following. I hope you're enjoying the content. So now I'm just hoping to draw a land. Yes, you will become the Monarch. But if I draw a land, I'm going to become the Monarch. And it's going to be disgusting. Yeah, Leyline has been the card that I have been praising most highly in the format right now. What an awkward fight this is. I'm going to play towards Recruiter for Plague Engineer in a single turn. Yeah, Plague Engineer. Just disgusting. Yeah, I was gonna say, I do not think that you attack with the engineer there. Or the young pyromancer there. Land. Land. I'm going to do all of my fetching prior to casting this spell. So that I can't get hit with a K command to make me discard this. That's something my opponent already should have done if they had it, but I've gotten got by some weird timing choices previously. Now I'm going to ship this Charming Prince in at the Young Pyromancer. See if we can become the Monarch. Opponent says no. Yeah, fine and Andy, that's correct. This Cabal Therapy hanging out is very threatening to me. I'm also a little confused about why my opponent hasn't wastelanded me. I'm not complaining, per se. I'm just confused. And I'm the Monarch. Yeah, I'm over here cowering in fear about Wasteland, and my opponent's like, no, you can keep it. You might need that mana later. Might need to ponder into Hardcast Force of Will. Like, they must have some reason for not wastelanding. I just don't understand what it is. Like, maybe there's Snapcaster mages in there too, and they're thinking about, like, Snapcaster Colligan's command after a ponder or something like that. But it seems like taking me off of 6 mana for Recruiter into some other card is important. But if my opponent isn't regularly checking MTGO challenge decklist dumps, they've probably never seen this deck before, so they don't know what to play around. Yeah, so like I think I was 100% stone cold dead if they wastelanded me off of my first Underground Sea. And not wastelanding allowed me to play Recruiter into Plague Engineer in the same turn. Reanimate's in there, huh? Okay. So you have to exile my Plague Engineer. This is a weird game. So also just other things in terms of sequencing. Don't you Thoughtseize first to gain information? So, for example, if I had Swords to Plowshares as the card that was in my hand and I played it on that Palace Jailer right there, my opponent would have been super screwed. And all I'm saying is Flicker Wisp off the top. That's not Flicker Wisp at all. Hello, hello. Good games earlier. This game has swung back and forth a whole lot. Oh, okay. Oh, well, I'm not blocking that. But that should mean you have another creature here, or a removal spell from my recruiter. So anything that gives me the ability to bounce that Palace Jailer is going to be stupid good. So Teferi, Flicker Wisp. This is a wonderful, wonderful brainstorm that I'm very happy to have drawn. That's great. I think I'm going to put back the Marsh Flats and Brainstorm. Fetch. I'll get a scrub land for my... actually, I might just get the basic plains here. What fetches do I have left in the deck? Flooded Strand gets it. Polluted Delta does not. So if I don't get the plains here, I may run out of targets later. No, I need to get Scrubland. Because Baleful Strix may draw me into something that requires blue-blue. Excuse me. It's very good. Very, very, very good. I am, however, not going to use it this turn because there's still a Cabal Therapy in Graveyard. My opponent's deck list is something special. Yes, it is an interesting night of Legacy, to say the least. Blue-green Omnitail is very much a real deck. Okay. That's definitely frustrating, because that gives my opponent draws into a Thoughtseize, very specifically. Which stops a lot of my lines. Okay, so now I need my opponent not to have a counterspell. Wisp and Prince are gone. So I guess I'm doing this with Soulherder. It's exile you control. Do I need to Peacekeeper to stay alive? I'm at 4, folks. I'm at 4. Ugh. I did not realize that we only had 1 Flicker Wisp and 1 idiot. Alright. Current plan is win by mill. And I was so excited about getting to blink this thing. Engineered explosives, too? K-Command, Underworld Breach, Reveler, Reanimate, Tyrant Scorn, Engineered Explosives. I'm playing around everything here. So, Sword seems good. Plague Engineer seems great. Rest in Peace seems great. Fairy seems good. Yeah, there's all sorts of things in my opponent's deck. So I don't think I'm supposed to Jailer. I really don't think I'm supposed to Peacekeeper either. My opponent also has so many weird situational one-ups that I'm maybe not supposed to play Meddling Mage. Like, it definitely loses out on some value here. Yeah, opponent is on a real weird Grixis control deck. Oh no, I still think this card's pretty bad. But I'm going to keep it in against the, like, random Underworld Breach, Bedlam Reveler, Graveyard, Culligan Command, Synergy, Reanimate deck. But I would wish it was another copy of Rest in Peace instead, you know? Combo. I would like to play first. I think it's okay if I miss a land drop in this matchup. Accordingly, I'm going to fetch... I'm going to keep this hand. Hope to just spike a land to play Baleful Strix on 2. I mean, we have Plague Engineers, right? So, like, we have outs to that. Now my opponent figures out how to use Wasteland. If you look at the scoreboard here, we're winning. We have more life. That's how it works. That's not how it works. I do think our hand is insane if we get to start playing Magic, but that is a big if. And a Cabal Therapy is a disaster. Great. So this first one takes Baleful Strix. The second one probably takes Recruiter of the Guard. So opponent gets a 3-for-1 off this discard spell. And makes most of my future top decks very bad. Opponent giving it a little bit of thought. But since I know I have Plague Engineer, as well as access to things like Peacekeeper, I think it is supposed to be the Recruiter of the Guard. Although, honestly, it's pretty hard to go wrong in their position. Take the Brazen Borrower. I don't think that would have been my top choice there. I don't know the rest of their hand. But I would have taken the thing that finds the bullet or the thing that was castable next. But again, my opponent's deck is full of a bunch of weird situational one-ups, so it's hard for me to know. It can also be irrelevant if they just have another Cabal Therapy. Ah. I don't know that I like that line. If they have a Reanimate, I think I would have gone for the Brazen Borrower and just gone for the more aggressive kill in the air. I don't think I'll beat another Wasteland this game, so I'm going to get Scrubland to leave up the ability to rip Plague Engineer later. I'm just going to name Bolt. I am somewhat tempted to just name Force of Will, though. Even though that's a card in my deck as well, because Force of Will on Plague Engineer a few turns down the line is pretty devastating. Giver of Runes is so bad. So bad. I have not mathed this out yet. But even if I get the land this turn, it's possible it's too slow. Do I name Cabal Therapy to protect the Recruiter? Do I name Bedlam Reveler? Do I name K-Command again? My opponent's cards are too varied for Meddling Mage to be great against them. I need to keep some bodies, obviously, but things aren't great. I'm going to go ahead and name Therapy. I'm not stoked about it, but I need to protect this Recruiter. Honestly, my most likely path to victory at this point is just timeout. What is this spell that my opponent is casting? Because it feels like they're trying to pay costs and they're having some trouble with it. Ah. Snapcaster target reanimate? Reanimate Soulherder. I see. Oh, please target the Baleful Strix. Please target the Baleful Strix. I'm about to get, like, Blazing Volleyed. Baleful Strix. Baleful Strix, yes! 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 Alright. Alright. Small victories. Small victories. So remember the thing like 8 turns ago where I said my opponent should have just targeted the Brazen Borrower and tried to kill me? Just saying. I could be very dead. Instead, my opponent gave me a gift. They are still just going to Kulgan command me at the end step, so I'll lose one of these things, plus my planes. But it's okay. I'm guessing that I'm going to lose the Baleful Strix in this exchange, but nothing is certain. This game has taught us anything. It is that nothing is certain. Nope, the one on Lightning Bolt. Discard this. So I actually think I'm supposed to name Human, because that also gets rid of the Snapcasters. I could attack with this Strix. I don't know that I want to, because I want it to block the Soulherder if my opponent attacks with it. Oh, I should have blocked with the Recruiter too, because my opponent is now going to flicker the Plague Engineer and put it on Human. This was a worse turn than I thought it was. I should have played this slower. Should not have blocked. That was a costly mistake. So I think I needed to remove the Plague Engineer, take 7, go to 3, need opponent to not have Lightning Bolt, need to play Recruiter, then die to the Elementals. That's not great. Otherwise, I Swords to Plowshares the Soulherder, play this, next turn it dies to state-based effects. I would need to top deck a non-human to trade with Plague Engineer. I do have some of those. Yeah, I think I need to play towards a top deck. That allows me to beat this board. I don't think I can beat another creature. Definitely can't beat 2 creatures. We have another K command. Painful truths. Sure, that's in there too. Well, I'm alive. Opponent represented the fact that they had Lightning Bolt there. I don't think they are going to timeout. Yeah. Alright. GG's. So, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it here for tonight's stream. I'm coughing quite a bit, and all of the matchups with this are grindy. I don't think I have another hour-long matchup in me if that's what happens to happen tonight. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed. I will be back on Thursday with a Breach stream with Honorog. Once I confirm all the details with him, I will post an exact time. I hope you enjoyed. If you did and you're not already following, please go ahead and follow. And I'm going to turn you over to XJ Cloud, who is probably playing some D&T. Cheers, folks.